that I think the penal code of Sharia can become applicable across the board if one achieves those basic stages of development in that community.
When the Caliph Omar, who was the second Caliph of Islam, entered Jerusalem, there was fear on the part of the communities that were living there that there would be a persecution. But the Charter of Omar stands out as a document that would present to communities worldwide the fairness of Islam, the justice of Islam, the humane system that it presented. And even when the Patriarch offered Omar to pray in the church, he preferred to pray outside, saying that one day, if I prayed inside one day, perhaps Muslims may want to claim this church. So the Charter of Omar is the best example and the earliest example of the Sharia in the application of rule between Muslims and non-Muslims, between governments, between communities, and between nation states.
It is from the Charter of the Caliph Umar that one establishes that the rights of non-Muslims within an Islamic state are protected. Religious conflicts, particularly between Muslims and Christians in countries like Nigeria and Sudan, have raised concerns about the implementation of Sharia law. Quite often, it is situations like these where Islamic laws are abused by a minority to the detriment of the rest of the Muslim world. The right to religious freedom, thought and expressions are to be respected and guaranteed in Islamic countries.
The right to freedom of religion is a paradigm which underpins the Sharia, and that has to be respected and protected. So a person who is not of the Islamic faith falls within that category of, firstly, to be respected for his own beliefs, secondly, to be protected for that, and to be given the necessary means to continue to practice his faith. So it's wrong for people of one or the other to burn down churches or religious institutions or mosques or synagogues. It's severely condemned and is an act of criminal conduct. So one can't say that the actions that are carrying on in many parts of the world, I mean, whether they're in Europe or in India or Pakistan or Nigeria or Sudan, is because of any religious convictions. That's simply because of aberrations or emotions and behaviors seem to be aroused by political interests of one group or the other. They have no justification at all from the point of the Sharia or Islam.
It has been stated that the increase in lawlessness and serious crime in South Africa has now manifested itself to such a disturbing degree that the framework and the very existence of society is threatened with collapse. The unique position enjoyed by Muslim countries in controlling crime is evident from a review of the 1994 Interpol International Crime Statistics. 8 of the 15 countries with the lowest crime rates in the world in 1994 were Muslim countries. The criminal justice system of any country which fails to guarantee for its citizens the confidence that they can pursue their daily lives in peace and safety soon loses credibility in the eyes of the citizens. A large percentage of South Africans are of the view that the legal system has not satisfied their need for justice, in that those who commit serious offences have not been visited with corresponding sentences. Despite South Africa's new constitution, many frustrated and angry citizens are of the opinion that the death penalty should be reinstated.
My personal view is that if the death penalty were to be reimposed in South Africa, it will not substantially reduce the crime rate. And the reason for this is that there have to be certain things in place before the crime rate will decrease. One of them is severe penalties, for example, the death penalty. One of the criticisms that's leveled against the death penalty and against Islamic law as well, or Islamic punishment, is that the death penalty is irreversible. And if a person is wrongly convicted, there's no way in which one could overcome the problem of imposing the penalty. And secondly, why should the courts stoop to the level of the offender by imposing the death penalty.
I speak as a Muslim, and when I speak as a Muslim, I speak from the divine book. And the Quran is very consistent. It says, you know, فِي الْقِصَاصِ حَيَاتٌ يَا أُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when describing or when sanctioning taking a life for a life, which is part of the Old Testament as well, it says that in death there is life. In taking a life, you're giving life. In other words, in taking a life of one person, you're giving life to the rest of the community. So yes, I am a proponent of the death penalty. If a person steals and the person has gone to the court procedure, Islamic court procedure, and eventually he is found to be guilty, then his hand should be cut off. If he's a murderer and is not forgiven by the family, then the Quran says his life must be taken.
The crime-inflicted citizens of South Africa are frustrated with a justice system that seems to favor the criminals. This has resulted in people taking the law into their own hands to mete out instant street justice.
People do not have the right to take the law into their own hands. They might have a justification for it through frustration and having a problem with the authorities looking after their interests. They might take the law into their own hands, but certainly the Sharia does not allow for this. This has in fact resulted in kangaroo courts, in necklacing, in community-based organizations springing up, but certainly the Sharia does not allow a person taking the law into his own hand.
The objection raised is whether the Islamic law, which is based on the Holy Quran, is applicable to the present era and circumstances. Despite the success in curbing crime, the question raised is, are Muslims looking upon Islamic law as an orphan who desires to survive through prevalent systems of the period?
I think to create a society in which people won't be prone to commit crime. This is the first instance. The second instance is that when you do punish, when the society is in a good condition, and you do punish, then the punish should be of a deterrent nature. I don't think we should create prison hotels where it is easier and better to live inside there than outside in society. So there has to be a deterrent nature, but also a system in which people can be embedded, their life embedded and their outlook on life embedded, that they can fit into society in a better way.
When Western ears hear the word Sharia, you know, they cringe because it takes them back to that state in their development when their state and the religion were fused and they didn't want that. So what we're looking at a situation at the moment where post-colonization period, the Muslims are now only coming out of that period. And I think there's a movement afoot now to say that really the Sharia with its laws is actually a system of law which is relevant to contemporary society. It challenges and it has answers for contemporary situations. If you look at the murder rate, if you look at the sexual revolution in the world, and if you look at Islam's answers to these, then you find that that is the answers that the world is looking for.
Yes, there is a direction, a tendency to go there, because it wasn't Sharia law as applied, wasn't something fictitious or in the imagination of historians. It served for several centuries in the past and produced a civilization that made a great contribution to subsequent civilizations. So Muslims throughout the world are conscious of this and they are striving. But it is a question of where they are focusing and which particular aspect of Sharia law they want to implement. It's wrong for states, on the other hand, for states in which they have majority Muslim populations, to focus purely on the criminal side or one or two aspects without necessarily ensuring that their political structures first are in place. Because I refer to the paradigm of self-determination, that is the right to responsible political freedom, and where there is a consensus between the ruler and the ruled, not for the ruler to rule, but that both should jointly rule under obedience of the Almighty's